Is that going? What's it doing? Hold on a
Said go.
second.
Says live.
It do.
Or YouTube's kicking on.
Okay.
Find out in a minute.
Yeah, we will, won't we?
Should I do something really obscene and see if YouTube kicks us off? Then you'll know you're live.
Right, exactly. I don't know.
It depends. It depends on this channel.
There's some unusual stuff. We'll see if Alex sees it all, but
Here
it's
we go.
definitely there. It is definitely there.
Okay, folks.
So everybody's looking forward to seeing you, Alex, and
Yeah, we have dozens of people.
Got people popping in already.
We're popping
Hello,
in.
hello.
We have dozens of people.
Starting. So I mean, yeah, this is Alex Collier, the legendary Alex Collier.
You know, when I started that legendary stuff, I never expected it to get legs. Just kidding. Just kidding.
It's just the work you've done.
That's it.
Being consistent on the path. That's the whole thing, and being humble. I think that's the key. It's always been, I think, the humbleness.
You know, it's when you're humble, you remember the journey. You remember where you were, where you are. You're cautiously optimistic about where you're going because you don't know, but you're always, I think, humble is always being grateful for the trials and the tribulations and then the blessings, you know. For example, there were several times I was homeless living out of my car because I lost a job because of this kind of work.
Right.
And when something good would happen, you'd always be grateful. And then what happens is you begin to expect the good. You expect something good to happen, even if something bad happens or a challenge occurs. You go right back into the mode of, you know what, I'm going to get out of this. I don't know how yet, but I'm grateful for this experience. And then you learn from it. You never shut yourself down, because when you do that, one, you disempower yourself, which makes no sense to me that anybody would want to do that. Is to disempower themselves. Two, if you disempower yourself, it means because you bought what somebody else thought of you who doesn't even know you. That's even dumber than taking yourself out of the game. Okay. And when you realize that, you know, you're a soul that's coexisting in multiple dimensions, we're ageless. You know, we're part of this creation, and you're literally creating your own reality. The only one you got to convince about your extraordinary power is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
And when you remember that, and you remember, you know, just, I can't even tell you how many times I would lay on the hood of the car, regardless of my emotion that was going on at the time. And, you know, you look at the stars, and especially here in the Rockies, you know, you can see the Milky Way.
Yes.
How are you not in awe of that? Mm-hmm. And knowing that there is so much life in there, and that somewhere in one of those stars, there is somebody just like me, stuck somewhere on some planet on the hood of his spaceship, wondering how the hell he's going to get home. You know, exactly. You just keep things in perspective. And you know, Jen, somehow, some way, I always managed to figure it out or get help through intervention or just somebody being very benevolent. And you know, here I am going on 70. And it's been an extraordinary life. And it still is extraordinary. You know?
It is.
And, and everybody, geez, Mr. Collier, geez, Alex, you got all this knowledge, all this wisdom. Man, it was earned, you know. It was all learned.
Right.
And, and it's very interesting. And, I have one son who told me a few months ago that he thought I was lucky to be this old because I didn't have a clue. And I'm just like, man, you're an idiot.
Well, I wonder how you're going to feel after you go under a med bed. And then you're going to like, oh man, I'm going to have to have a whole brand new project to deal with, right? And then you're going to be younger in a different way.
Well, even if I don't physically regress,
Mm-hmm.
if I could just, get rid of some of the aches and pains
Right.
in the body from broken bones
Mhm.
and all kinds of things that have happened throughout my life, I'd be happy with that. I think we earn our wrinkles. They're like stripes, you know. I think we earned them from life's lessons. And but what I'd like to do is um, my big thing is the vets. I want to
Yeah.
get vets off the street. Um, I want to do some things here in my home state that really need doing. For example, we have nearly 5,000 homeless vets up and down the Front Range from Colorado Springs to Fort Collins, and there's just no excuse for it. If
Mm-mm.
they found room for 40,000 illegal aliens from Venezuela here, why the
Yeah.
hell can't you find room, for 5,000 veterans? What is wrong with
Absolutely.
you people? So, there needs to be a shift. There needs to be an epiphany with these idiots. Um, and, we have the forest. They're trying to do what California did, leave the dead trees. If you were to take 70 up through the Eisenhower Tunnel and you come out the other side of the Eisenhower Tunnel, on the south side, all those trees are dead. Okay.
Wow.
And each one is a matchstick. Cut down those trees, plant new trees, take that lumber, let's lumber it and build housing for homeless vets or just homeless people, period. Let's just use that lumber and do it. All we have to do is go in it. It only makes sense. It has to be done anyway, or you're going to be like California. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to start wildfires that you can't put out, which is stupid. Not only that, but we have places here, Jenny, that have never seen a footprint.
Yeah.
No human has ever been in some of these canyons.
Right. Exactly.
So if you have fires in there,
Mhm.
there's nothing you can do. And we don't have enough fire equipment. We have to borrow it from Montana, Idaho. And if they're using it, it doesn't exist. We don't have it. So, one of the other things that I was hoping to do with the reval money is to get some of that equipment and donate it to the state. Go
Right.
to the graveyard in Arizona and pick out a few of the airplanes that are there, mothballs, those that can be repaired, repair them and retrofit them to fight forest fires, to drop water. Just have everything ready, and that creates jobs. You can create fire brigades. You can lumberjacks to go into the forest, cut them down, haul the trees out, uh, lumber the wood, you know, housing. USA aid, all the money that they were giving these other people, we could have fixed this country already, just with half of that
Mhm.
money.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
It's so frustrating that I just don't understand it.
Because it would
I
have
don't.
created independence. It would create a world, a country that was flourishing, and we would be more advanced in the future and taking care of humanity in a different way. That's why they wanted to enable us. And now, you know, there's a turning point that we're looking at because we turned our backs, didn't pay attention, and acted like they were taking care of us. We were in denial.
Oh yeah, big time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's part of the epiphany we were talking about offline. But I mean, how stupid do you have to be that if you're paying somebody to be your friend, that you really think they're your friend?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where does that come from? Where does that? How do you fix that kind of stupid? Is it even possible? I don't know that a med bed can fix that kind of stupid.
I don't know. I think there's some things that can't, and yeah, that is one to. I mean, these are people not we want to be around in the survival mode of things because they can't think on their own.
Well, they
And
don't think at all. They're not thinking at all. If they
no,
did, they wouldn't go down this road.
no, they're
No.
insulted that we're asking for our money back, and they're why don't you want to keep going the same route and keep paying these taxes and give them to other country? They're like, it's insane. They're so sick that they think it's normal to do this.
Well, personally, I think that they realize that they're caught because they're very defensive. That's number one. Number two, the only ones who are really griping are those who are probably on the take, who are getting the
Right.
money, the laundered money back to their campaigns. Just in Ukraine, it's estimated that at least $20 billion has already been laundered back to the Democrat Party for the next election.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's amazing. And then that's what we're talking about. People are like, I'm not paying taxes anymore. Not We shouldn't be paying taxes until we say, hey, until you get this shit straightened and then we know where our money's going, we're done. We're done. We're done until we see it straight and the right direction and doing the right thing. I mean, we're done taking it in the ass. I'm sorry. We're done. We're over it.
well, we have to rethink what government is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not what the founders wanted at all. What we have now, we have this bureaucracy, this
Mm-hmm.
this corporation that's sole purpose is to consume and control everything around itself, even other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And Canada is a good example of this. We give them $100 billion a year in subsidies, and when we buy their dairy products, we pay like a 40% tariff on those dairy products. So not only are we giving them money and our military is defending Canada, but then they kazing us, when we import products from Canada. And how do you call that a working relationship? How do you call that friendship? There's no mutual respect there. It's
No.
it's like we make and you take. That's all
Exactly.
that's the relationship we have with the world. We make and you take. That's all it is. And all of our pockets are empty now. So it couldn't go any further. It just couldn't go any further.
No. And that's the whole thing. And now they're going to have to pay. And it's like Canada the other day. They were like, we're going to pull the power. Or go right ahead, pull the power. We'd like to see that happen. We're calling wolf on you. Nothing happened, of course,
No.
because he doesn't have the power.
Well,
Not
no.
now.
That's just politicians talking to their constituencies,
Yeah.
acting all tough.
Yeah.
Because if they really did that, well, the 100 billion would dry up, right? Just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not stupid.
Yeah.
If we're going to give them the money, they'll take it, but they're not overtly going to try to piss us off. And they have to be careful with Trump,
Hmm.
because he's a very different. Well, he's not a politician, number one, and number two, he has this he has a really good attitude when it comes to business. Fuck it, I'll just walk away,
Yeah.
and he has that attitude. You know, and if he made that decision with Canada, they'd be screwed.
Hmm.
They'd be screwed. Because they've already let China in their country. They've already let China put the military in their country. China's not going to go unless they're forced out.
No.
You know, how are the Canadians going to remove them? They're going to have to go to war with China in their own country. Does that
Uh,
make sense to anybody? So it's just, it's just stupid is as stupid does.
Bought and paid for, but also that there are Canadians that want to step up, but there are a lot of Canadians that are just so afraid of their own government, and that's the thing. They have to go through a filtering stage where they have to finally step up and say something, and not go with the program. And I
Well,
believe that
what is the government? The government is made up of the people of Canada,
yes,
right? Their
right,
neighbors, their friends, their sons, their daughters, aunts, uncles, etc. So you're afraid of your own neighbors. You're afraid of your own military, who's made up of you, the same people. That's the brainwashing. That's the programming.
exactly.
And here in the United States, the perception is that we're afraid of the military, and we're really not, because we have more retired military than active duty military. We have more retired law enforcement and federal agents than we do active
Actually,
duty.
yeah,
And
Mhm.
you know they understand that if they really really screw up, then this is the little bighorn for them. you
hmm,
know we're the Indians and they're the Seventh Cavalry, and they're just not going to make it. So they have to stand down, and that's I think what the Q movement's about, and the White Hats is to sift through what's left and be clear about who the traitors are and who the
Mhm.
patriots are. And I think at this point they have a really really good idea of what that looks like, what those numbers are, and which teams and units um, can be trusted. And we're going to start seeing the wheat separate from the chaff. We're going to see that. It's happening now. It's just not real public yet. But we're very, very close to it. And
you would see it very fast, and they know this. This is the true power here, Alex.
when
Is
they move, it'll be fast.
yeah,
When they move, it'll be fast. Yeah.
and the true power. All Trump has to say is stand up, and you will see something happening that you've never seen before. And he knows he's got that power to call them in within seconds.
Well, we haven't seen it since what 248, 249 years.
Mm-mm.
And that was the revolution. When everybody stood up, or enough stood up and said, "Yeah, let's do this." Where the World Trade Center used to be
Mhm.
back um, back in 1775 and 76. That was a green, a huge uh, glade of just prairie of grass. It's just beautiful. And the British ships were coming in to New York and what is now Staten Island, and they were landing, unloading their troops. And the Revolutionary Army stood there watching this, and that is the first time that our Revolutionary Army heard the Declaration of Independence. As they're watching the British ships come in from over the horizon, they were standing on this glade where the Twin Towers used to be, listening to the officers read to them the Declaration of Independence. So they were perfectly and crystal clear about what it was that we were all fighting for at that time. You know, Because you had your media then. You had your British media, uh, and the newspapers. They printed newspapers and pamphlets, and King George is wonderful. He could walk on the water, from London all the way to the colonies if he wanted. If he wanted to get his feet wet, he could just walk on top of the water because he was so wonderful. Which of course, all the colonists knew was bullshit. So, but they had that kind of propaganda even then. So, you know, uh, America's different. There's never been another country like it. And it was a place where people from all over the world wanted to come because they believed in the idea of individual liberties and sovereignty. They they could make something of themselves. They could own property, which in every other monarchy you never own property, you know. But here you could because we didn't have a monarchy. It was a constitutional republic that was built and managed by we the people, not a monarchy. And it was different. And I think it's that idea, the possibilities of what that foretells for humanity, that has kept America what it is even to this day. Even the intervention, the darkness that's invaded and infected much of the United States, the media, the media, the corporations, the government, even some of the military. There are still enough people who believe in the ideals of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States that, here we are once again going through another revolution and casting off the darkness once again and pushing it back into the ocean, which is where it belongs. And even though it's not the crown, it's still the bankers. It's still the bankers, and these are the same bankers, the Rothschilds, etc., that were controlling the monarchies as well, because many of these monarchies could not have, Britain especially, could not have existed had they not been given money by the bankers. The treasure chests that were placed all around Europe that they could get their hands on, and we know that the banking families bred into these monarchies, these royal families, these royal bloodlines. The Rothschilds being a perfect example of that. Um, and now they claim that they're of royal line, royal blood as well, and of course all they did was pay their way into it. That's all they did was buy their way into it. So it's going to be fascinating, the history of not only the U.S. but the whole world. People haven't got a clue. There are people still think that Columbus discovered America. And it's just like, they obviously can't read because there's so much information to disprove that. Uh, the Perry Reese map, which was put together by an admiral, Perry Reese from Portugal, he used 3 or 4 different maps to create that one. Well, what's interesting about the Perry Reese map, which goes back to the 1500s, or even maybe even earlier, is that on the back of the original Perry Reese map, he gives notations of the maps that he used to compile that particular map, that cartography. And 2 of the maps that he used that specifically had um, mapped out North and South America were given to him by the family of a general that was that served Alexander the Great. This is 25 BC now. Alexander the Great. So Alexander the Great was given maps by the librarians at Alexandria. And these maps, 25 BC, had already mapped out the entire world, the entire coastlines of every continent, including Antarctica, with no ice on it. Okay?
Yep.
With no ice on it. So, and you have copper artifacts, antiques, cups, tools, things like that, that were made of copper and some of tin. And what's really interesting is that when they researched the DNA of the copper, some of it comes from a copper mine that was here in America, now America or North America. They've estimated the carbon dating at somewhere around 10,000 years. Well, those copper tools, the copper to make those tools came from a mine that still exists to this day in the state of Indiana. Now, it wasn't Indiana then, all right, 10,000 years ago. It was just a mine. But that means people were here, okay? There was civilization here. And tin, all up and down South America, on the east coast of South America. A lot of tin mines down there as well, and some copper mines too, from South America. So, and all of this goes back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. It's really remarkable. And one of the most wonderful stories is that Prince Madoc, Madoc, and your listeners can research him. He was the son, one of the sons of King Arthur, as we know them. And we're talking about somewhere between 560 AD and 1150 AD. There seems to be some conflict about when that is, but no matter what that date turns out to be, it's still pre-Columbus. Anyway, they have records of them coming from the British Isles to the New World, and they set up colonies. One of those colonies, it was in the Tennessee Valley area. Now, what's really interesting about this is that many of the early Jesuits that came across into the New World, when the colonies began to happen from Europe, Jamestown, and so on and so forth, when they came across, they met Indians that spoke perfect Welsh, Native Americans that spoke Welsh. Okay? How's that happen? Where'd they learn Welsh?
Yeah.
But they spoke perfect Welsh, and they told these oral stories about Prince Madoc and his bodyguard, his protector, Gulad was his name. That's how he was referred to, as Gulad. It turns out he was Galahad, but Gulad. And there is somewhere in the British Museum a document where uh, a diplomat from King Arturo, went to Rome to ask for permission to colonize and to own this property. Okay, the series of letters and documents, they still exist. They're in the British Museum, and hopefully they'll come out at some point. And the Pope at that particular time said he could not give England or Arthur permission to do that because he had already promised those lands to the Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is 550, 560 AD to 1150 AD. So the Pope knew about the lands, the British knew about the lands, the miners that were making tin and copper were selling it. They knew about the new land, the new world. You see, the biggest secret is the fact that the whole world knew about the world. You know, um, it's just absolutely fascinating. So when people learn this history, they're going to realize that everything they learned in school was not only wrong, but it was intentional. It was intentional. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they simply were never going to tell us the truth, ever, for whatever their reasons are. They were never ever going to tell us the truth about who
That,
we are and where we come from, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
that's why I think a lot of us, when we were very young, we kind of rejected education. We didn't want to. It didn't feel right with us, and we did our own path of things. That's how I was, and
Well, we
I
probably knew on some level it was bullshit. We just didn't know how to verbalize it. You know?
yeah, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Another one that I'm really interested in is the Tartarians. Everything about their
Mm-hmm.
history is just amazing, you know. And no one's. You have people talk about it, but there's proof everywhere. I mean, even
Yeah.
their structure and how they built things and everything. It's just amazing, you know, side by side.
Well, the Tartarians they may have been the remnants of Atlantis or Lemurians or a separate kingdom, which somehow doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
But, you know, the oral histories that the white race, the Caucasian race, came out of the Caucasian mountains. That something had happened and they were living underground
Right.
for a period of time. And then they came out onto the surface and began to migrate north to Northern Europe and then move south, where they met other tribes that had been living on the surface and had figured out through pole shifts and all the other things that were going on in history, they managed to figure out and to survive and form their own cultures. For example, the Indian culture of India. You know, they can trace their heritage back 25,000 years. That takes it back to look to Atlantis, you know, or before Atlantis. But who listens to them, right?
Right. Exactly. No, it's the program, and that's the whole thing. We have to relive our whole past and reprogram, not even program ourselves, but look at the facts in front of you and read. I mean, the history. You know, I'm thinking 50 years ago. Go back further than that. Go back to 100 years and start to look for the original writings, the original books, and everything else. I mean, I'm reading a ton of books on the Book of Enoch right now. I mean, just emerald tablets. I mean, gosh, can't they try to hide all this stuff.
They did hide it. They hid it for thousands
Yeah.
of years.
And when you read that stuff, you know it's so true because you feel it in the core.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Across the board.
Yeah.
And the stuff that they present to you these days, you're just like, it's so superficial, it's so fake. And they, like I say, documentation follows a verification. And, you know, you really look for those artifacts on everything. And we've gotten away from that and they just push programs. And so I think it's a different rude awakening. And this is the thing I'm really happy is the education is going to just go shut down. I really believe that they're going to have to revamp the whole situation, the whole system. It's coming. I mean, those are good moves. We got to stop the programming.
You know, it's going to take a while
Hmm.
for that ship to turn. It is. Most states aren't even prepared to do this.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take a while, but you have to start somewhere. So
And
it's
getting them
all
to
good.
listen. The only way you can do that is you got to take money away from them and give them new standards and new guidelines to go by. And it's like you're not getting your money until these things are changing. And that's what they have to do. You know, states to get their money, they're going to have to. They want to take control of certain things, and they should have control back to the education and all that stuff. But again, we're not going into the program anymore.
No. Well, you know, education, it's one thing to create a new agenda. It's one thing to create an entire, a different educational plan. But what has to happen is that we have to be shown the past. We have to be shown the truth of the past so that educators, book writers, book editors, book printers, they 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 abandon the old program and they look at the evidence that's being presented in front of them in real time now and saying, yes, this is right. This is the truth. Because here's the evidence. Here's what's been suppressed, whether it's Tartaria or uh, the civilizations before Sumer, um, the colonization of North America, the Mississippians. We had cities in North America of 1 million people, and you know, the fringe archaeologists refer to them as the Mississippians because that's where they were. They were along the water of the Mississippi River. Uh, the ancient cities buried in the Gobi Desert. Each one of those has a story, has a history, and the evidence that it's there is still there. It's just, we have to be shown, and the truth has to be taught us. Now, where does that where does that teaching come from? Does it come from the military? Does it come from Space Force? Does it come from the Space Alliance? Is that part of the mentoring program where they come down and they show us evidence of the history of our planet, and put the pieces together for us and then allow us to go to these sites and dig them out ourselves and go like, oh my God, look at this,
Yeah.
like Gopeki. There's a perfect example. You know, they when the UN took that over, they slowed down all the archaeology. They slowed it down to almost a crawl because they didn't want to uncover anymore because they can't explain it. you
Right.
know so we've got to kick them to the curb and go in there and finish the job. And that's just one example. I mean, of they're still doing everything they can to cover it up, and they're not going to stop because they're all guilty of this. So that's going to take a while. That may take several decades or half a century in order to really right that ship and turn history, fake history, on its head. But we have to be committed to it because the future demands it. Future generations, they would demand to know the truth. Why would they look at this time period and all the change and say, well, why are we still learning the bullshit? Why are you still teaching us the fake history? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? And they would be justified in saying that. So healthcare, the healing modalities of the indigenous people,
Oh,
of
amazing.
of the natural healings from nature. There's another perfect example. You know, um, for 10,000 years, midwives delivered babies.
Yeah.
And they were the center of each society. Many of them and their husbands or the shamans, the indigenous people, they mixed herbs. They picked plants and flowers from around their area, and they created hooches and concoctions, and they used them as salves and as syrups to heal diseases. There was no pharmacy. There was no Bayer or Pfizer 1,000 years ago. This didn't happen. And yet, you know, people just want to give their power away so quickly, um, because they think, well, I can take this one pill because I have the sniffles, but there's 12 side effects to me taking this little pill. It'll get rid of my sniffles, but it'll give me 12 other reactions, that I have to go back to the doctor and see to take care of the reactions, you know, um, like hives, swollen tongue, uh, anal seepage, um, club foot, but you don't have the sniffles anymore, but you got all this other shit now. I mean, it's just hysterical. And, this is why when ETs fly by our solar system, they tell the kids in the back, kids, put the windows up and lock the doors. We're going past Earth now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe,
Yes.
like Spirit has always showed it, like our history is hidden in the ground and we need to dig it up, and we're going to be digging for years and years and years because they've covered everything up and buried everything so much.
Well, where else
Ice,
were they going to put it?
water.
Where else
I
were they
know.
going to put it? And this is what you do. This is your work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
This is
just
what
think
you
it's
do.
never going to stop. It's never going to end because that's all I want to do is, whether it's bodies, artifacts, whatever it is, we just want it surfaced to the top. I mean, the Holy Land is going to be just an amazing process when they move all those churches that they piled up on there and they find out what's really actually underneath there. It's going to be insane.
Those, yeah. Those vaults
Yes.
of artifacts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Europe's got lots of those because they kept building kingdoms on top of kingdoms.
Yeah. To
Yeah.
cover
Wow.
it up,
I know.
to dumb it down and say, here, look over here, pay attention on top. Don't even look at that. you know and if I have a really good Bible and stuff. It even shows underneath the Holy Land all the healing pods that were to each kingdom that was connected. They were doing that a long time ago.
I know.
And we're going back to naturopathic, and then we're going to realize that they just, yeah, it's a shame.
Plato in I think it's Republic talks about Atlantis, and he describes what Atlantis looked like, and he gives very, very specific measurements to what it looked like. And I don't know exactly where he got it, but that information, because I guess that's lost to time as well. But it's really interesting that exactly how Plato describes Atlantis. If you were to go online after this presentation and look up the Eye of Africa, just look up the Eye of Africa, and all we have are aerial photographs because no one's allowed to go in there or anywhere near that area to this day. And there are a lot of magnetic anomalies in this place as well, because if aircraft get too low, things wig out. But
Mm-hmm.
look up the Eye of Africa, and what you're looking at is exactly what Plato describes of what Atlantis looked like. And does anybody ever talk about the Eye of Africa?
No.
No.
No, they don't. No, they don't. So where do you hide things? You hide them in plain sight.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the cabal did too.
Oh, they learn from the best. They
Yeah.
learn from the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, it's
Yeah.
and
Just
that's the
keep
whole
dumbing
thing.
them down. Just
Yep.
keep dumbing them down, dumbing them down, dumbing them down. And, they'll be as dumb as a fence post. And then you won't need to explain anything anymore.
Exactly.
Because they won't even know the questions to ask.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Exactly.
That's true. Yes.
That's where we're at.
Now
I'm not
you're
asking
gonna have
questions anymore.
almost 500 people that's going to hop on there and look up the Eye of Africa.
I
No,
mean, it's just people used to get upset with me because I would get angry in the early days. I would get so frustrated, and there was some justification to that. There definitely was. But the reason I was so frustrated is people wouldn't ask any questions.
Mhm.
They would just sit there, almost like with a glaze. And really, a lot of the early days when I would do presentations or I would do the touring, do the dog and pony show. Um, all they wanted to hear was about the spaceships. They didn't want to hear about Earth history. They didn't want to hear about our DNA. They weren't interested in all that. Just tell me about the spaceships. That's all they wanted to hear. And I'm like, guys, that is not the most important part of all this.
No.
The most important part of all this is who we are. That's the missing piece here. It's not
Yes.
them, because they're only going to come here to tell us who we are. But if we can figure that out ourselves, we will empower ourselves. And that's what has to happen, is we have to empower ourselves. Because if they just come down here looking like gods, not acting like it, but looking like gods, people are going to give their power away.
Yes, they
And they're
are
not gods. They're not gods.
idolizing. Yes.
You know, what is that? What is that line from The Sounds of Silence? The neon gods we made, and we bowed before the neon gods we made. It's the same thing over and over, generation after generation, uh, civilization after civilization. It's just the same story, and we have to break that chain. We have to break this chain, or we just have to break the chain. We have to stop doing this. We have to figure out who we are. We have to demand to know the truth. There's what, 7.8 billion of us, 2 million of them, of the cabal. I mean, this is the little bighorn. There's 7.8 billion of us, and there's 2 million of them. I'm sure we could get the truth out of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Some waterboarding might be necessary.
Yeah. Exactly.
Some other convincing might have to happen, but I am sure we can get the keys to unlock all these vaults of hidden technology and hidden history, and then we can all begin to share these aha moments together. And, just get it done. Just get it done. So I've monopolized the first 30 minutes here, and I don't want to. So I'm going to shut up now and let you
you're good.
take over.
And I think the main thing, Alex, is like said with the humanity projects. I mean, I'm at a point where I'm antsy because I just want to get to the next phase. The next phase is serving humanity and how we're supposed to start doing that. And that's the thing. We're still kind of stuck in that 3D, and when everybody has their funding. But this is the thing. There's no excuses anymore between if we go through the med beds and we have the funding. And this is the whole conscience of society needs to change. How do I serve in my own world, and how do I help humanity? And that's where we need to start changing this outlook, because things are going to change. And you know what I really believe? I think there's going to be money out there for the humanity projects that just people are that just don't want to apply, or they don't even want to look how to apply. I'm literally telling you, I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to have to, come on, what do you want to work on? How is it that we've gotten to a point that, we just want to sit back? You can't do it no more. You can't sit back anymore. You have to find a way to help and feel that inside you, that calling that's telling you you have no limitation no more. You can go down a route and you are not going to be denied. But that whole program of limiting you is over when it comes to that gap. And when it's done, that alone changes your heart. When people start to give, it changes the energy upon this earth of giving. The negative can't survive in that. They can't survive in light. They can't survive in a heart full of giving to humanity back and forth and have a balance with that. And not the ego. And I'm seeing the ego die. It's finally at a point because of what's happened to Hollywood, but it's going to be refreshing to see it.
I think there are more people who are awake than we realize. I also think that they're not sure where this is going. They're having their own process of letting go their belief systems. Like, we are, and many of us have been doing this for some time. So we might be a little bit further along, but that's not to say others aren't on that same path. They're just
Right.
in different places. Now, yes, the humanitarian projects, there will be a profound amount of wealth in order to get these things done. Now, you will always have a percentage of those who say, well, look, I can't do this. I'm not built for it. My age, my issues, whatever that is, regardless of med beds, which we haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That will say, okay, look, here's a chunk of money. Use it the best way you can to achieve an agenda, a specific process. Now, the processes to fix the planet have not been really laid out to us yet. I mean, many of us as individuals have put together programs of things that we want, but the charts to plot these things out, the protocols to make these things all move forward, are all things that we're currently working on.
Right.
And right now, it's all um, fiction because we don't have the wealth there yet in order to
Mm-hmm.
make it happen. So it's all in our head or it's in our journals. To figure out what it is that we want to do. Now, for those who, for to address something you said about those who just won't want to do it or just won't be able to or just don't necessarily care, I simply don't agree with that, and I'll tell you why. The children,
Mm-hmm.
the children.
Yep.
8 million children a year disappear. In 10 years, that's 80 million. In
Yep.
20 years, that's 160 million children. How does somebody not emotionally respond to that when the world finds out what's been happening?
Mhm.
There's no way. And if they can't emotionally respond or be compassionate about that, then we shouldn't have them involved anyway.
Right.
Okay? Because there's that humanness part of them is already gone. So
On.
let's just put them somewhere where they
Yeah.
won't hurt anybody.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Right.
I truly believe that the seriousness of that and how it all went down and what happened to these children will absolutely motivate humanity to begin the process of resetting everything we know about ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, not just a financial reset, but a reset of humanity's goals and who we believe ourselves to be is going to be all part of this process. And these are going to be times, to quote Thomas Paine, that are going to try men's souls because this mirror is going to be held up to all of humanity. We're all going to have to look at that mirror. This was going on. We didn't know it. We didn't see it. And if we knew something or heard something about it, we just didn't want to deal with it. Well, now we're going to have to deal with it.
Exactly.
Now we're going to have to deal with it. And, that doesn't even account for the children that were taken off world.
Exactly.
We can never account for them again,
No.
So, but the ones that were here, the ones that are being rescued now, that mirror is going to be a mofo for all of us to look at because it
So
happened on our watch.
it
All
did.
of this happened on our watch.
But the way they look at it, and I see it when I talk about it, because I work in missing persons and seeing this stuff, it's just when you give them even a taste of doing it, and this is why I always use the puke bucket they're going to need, because they're like, that's too much reality. And it's too hard for me to fathom that we had make that choice to turn our children into hunting them, killing them, eating them. You know what I'm saying? Because they still thought, that this world and their leaders care. No, they didn't. They looked at it as profit too. So that's that veil of understanding. To get past that, you know what's going to happen. The souls are going to sit back. They're going to have to sit in this, and they might be depressed. They might be withdrawn. To so each person's at a different veil of understanding to accept it. But once they come back from it, and I know there's going to be anger.
Oh yeah.
Oh, is that what you're calling it? I lean more towards fury
Oh yeah.
than just anger. Absolute fury. Like a hyena killing a lion cub, and the father shows up. All the entire tribe of hyenas goes down because of the action of one. And that's how the Lion Kingdom does it. As far as those who perpetrated this, they made a choice of achieving power, and they made a deal with the devil, technically, or actually, in order to acquire power or fame, whatever that was. And in order to keep that, they were forced to do some horrific things. But they did it. They did do those things in order to maintain the power or the fame, as opposed to stepping back and saying, you know what, fuck it, no way am I going to do this. So, but again, that's another mirror. That's going to be another mirror that everybody's going to have to look at. And not everyone is going to understand, not everyone's going to resonate to those decisions, because most of us are not on the world or in the world to achieve power and or fame. That's never been our goal. But nonetheless, the list of people that have done this are all people that somehow touch our lives in one way or another. And it's still going to be a mirror, because, let's just say it's a former president, hypothetically, a former president. People are going to say, well, my God, I voted for him. Or an almost president. Well, I voted for her. I gave money to their foundation. I did this. I drove for miles and waited online to see them make a speech. Or I supported their policies. Or, I did this or I did that. Hollywood. Oh, I adored this person. I went to see all their movies and, all these things. And they absolutely in no way knew who it was that they were really worshiping or idolizing. They had no clue. And, these are all going to change how we look at the world, the perspective that we have. All of these things are going to change the way we see the world. And that process that happens inside each one, Jenny, will be a dark night of the soul. And it's going to be a rough one, because we're all going to be going through it. Probably many of us simultaneously. You're not going to be able to pick up the phone and say, hey, can you help me out? I'm going through a dark night of soul. Well, Alex, I'm going through it too now. I can't help you. I'm beside myself. So we're all going to have to, many of us are going to have to go through this process on our own. And once we get to the other side of that, now we're free. Now we're sovereign. Now the blinders are off. Right. Now we've empowered ourselves because we've decided to think for ourselves. We no longer have the blinders on. The blinders are off. Now you can see everything going on around you. You now have awareness, an awareness of reality, or you can see reality for what it is and what it's supposed to be, as opposed to the way you were before any of this disclosure occurred. It's this has to happen. This absolutely has to happen if we are going to truly become totally self-confident and free, to be unconditionally responsible for ourselves without being coerced by anyone.
If we
It's a
can't,
process, you know, and it's not going to be easy. It's just not. No way is this going to be a walk in the park,
mm-mm.
you know. But it has to happen, and we will definitely get through it. Other civilizations have had similar trials, maybe not like this, but other civilizations have had to go through things like this, and maybe even prior civilizations here on Earth had to go through things like this that, you know, we know nothing about. But, you know, our survival instinct is just profound. We'll figure it out. I mean, look at, you know, we've had what the geological record shows at least 8 pole shifts where the
Yep.
planet herself rolled over. All the oceans left their bed. They then receded back into the oceans. And then humanity started all over from the heights. They came down and they started all over at least 8 times, bearing their children along the way. We can do this. We absolutely can do this because it's been done.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something about the native reservations and stuff like that. And this is the saddest because those are the saddest cases I work on. And the thing is, it's hidden so deeply. It's not limelighted on the media at all. It is just discarded in a different way, and it's not. It's families that are just devastated because it's many children within the family that disappear. And I mean, I have a case that I went on to this house and there were freezers everywhere, loudspeakers everywhere, purses everywhere, IDs everywhere. Um, and I gave the description 6 years before I was on the property, and overnight, the Masons, they burned it down because they didn't want the evidence. There's so much evidence there. You know what I'm saying? It's all covering up all the time. And in some spiritual way, we have to go through a cleanse on this too, Alex.
Well, you're right. And the first piece of that is awareness. You know, you brought up the Native Americans, and I believe that this still holds true. Uh, it's my understanding that when women or children disappear, they keep a record of when they've disappeared, you know, and they open up a file. But when it comes to Native American women, young girls, there are no such records. They
Mm-hmm.
intentionally do not keep records of those disappearances. And I
Yeah.
believe it's even to this day. And there's a movie that was made about this called Wind River, um, where it literally talks about this, um, where there's no record of Native American women disappearing. And it has to be intentional because they're the only group in North America that's singled out where they don't keep records. It has to be intentional.
It is. And it's
Yeah.
sad. Their own relatives doing it too, um, just buying them out in a different way and not saying anything. I mean, it's just, that's not what they were. A long time ago, they took care of each other. And I mean, they're afraid of what has happened to their own culture and everything because of it. And That's the whole thing. It's just in there. Everybody goes along with this, but there's so many. There's so many. And that's why the way I look at it, I want to return every bone, every body back to the surface, because there's so many bodies that are buried in the ground. They're not identified. And that alone, it's tremendous. And they all have to be surfaced. They all, there's stories behind each of those souls. And it keeps this land in the point of a mystery on purpose, and that's the thing. When those, it's not just the children, it's the bones that are going to surface. The stories behind those.
I know. There's a lot of stories in Canada about Native American children that disappeared whenever the Royals would show up.
Mm-hmm.
And God, man,
Yeah,
nobody likes talking about this stuff. I don't like talking about this stuff. Um, but there's still a great deal of censorship out there about some of this. And, but nonetheless, if we're going to address this and fix this, then it has to be out in the open so that we can all have a conversation about it and talk about it and change it, change all the narratives, change all the perspectives. Just, this is we the people, folks. This is we the people. We have to stop looking at government thinking that it can fix anything. we have to start doing this ourselves on a local level. At least start there. At least have these conversations.
Exactly.
And then take it to a state level or a province, because Canadian, they're provinces. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of work ahead of us in order to fix these things. But once everybody knows, it's out in the open, and we get past the shock factor, and we get past the anger, rage, and fury, then we can take that energy and put it into motion to begin the process of fixing the scenario so it never happens again, and making those who are still alive accountable for what was done. And they have to be accountable for what's happened. No one gets a pass on this, because everyone's life has value, and we have to honor that life. We absolutely have to honor that life. Just because a government gives you a license to kill, it doesn't mean you should. Doesn't mean you should kill anybody.
Well, I think one of my biggest problems on cases and to get into an area is they won't let you get into the area because they want to hide it so well. And, we have to have access to these lands. We know that that's where they're hidden. And my problem is the Masons and the police departments hiding that are bad. And so that alone, to gut that fish, is going to be a big one too. It's huge.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating because they think they're untouchable. And they look at things very insignificant, like it doesn't matter. It's just about covering it up and moving on. Another one up.
But Jenny, that's their illusion. That's not ours.
I know.
That's their illusion that they're untouchable.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be ours. Yeah. The only way that we can truly be free is if we all begin to defend each other. Only in defending each other will we remain free.
Yeah.
It's the only way.
So I think when all these graves of a native, again, here we go with tales of tears, a different type of situation is going to occur again of death and destruction when it's uncovered again, you know. It's sad. It is sad. But we just got to get to a point that everybody's willing to stand up and dig, find them, bring them home.
All we can do.
Yeah.
All we can do. We can, honor them in whatever way
Yeah.
we can. You know, the thing to remember is that we're all soul. We're all spirit. And, even this conversation is reaching some of those who have crossed a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because we're all connected through source, through creator. And, even a simple conversation, well, it's not really simple, but even a conversation like this reaches people and on a soul level, and they, and it could be that they're sitting back wherever they are and they don't understand exactly what it is, but there's this feeling of completion that maybe comes over them because they realize that someone's finally dealing with the problem or talking about the problem, as opposed to feeling like no one ever cared about them, when in fact that isn't true. So I don't know. You want to change the subject to something a little more?
Yeah. Yeah. I think everything. So, when I'm looking forward, and I always say a day that we're feeling this refreshed completion of our world, that we can wake up and feel things are at peace again. Our kids are innocent to be playing in the yard, and we don't have to worry anymore.
Yeah.
Everything, and it's going to come, but it feels like it's unreachable, but it is developing towards that direction, and people are changing. I mean, that's the whole thing. Animals want peace. Everything that's on this planet wants that peace, and it only takes the negative to bring in and turn in a different direction. And that's the whole thing. Is I believe the conscience of the light, of when that changes, and I think it's going to give people that intuition to give. People feel so great when they give. Their heart, feels balanced when they give, and they're going to be able to do that in the future in a different way, and that creates an energy on Earth that we need. It's not about I love to see that the complete ego is dying. You're seeing it. I'm seeing it. Doesn't mean anything anymore. Doesn't mean anything to live in a big house or drive a fancy car or have a bunch of money, because there's no peace with that. It's just a persona. They fed us.
Well, the ego is a false construct anyway. We only built it out of defense, to try to defend ourselves from feeling worthless. And as far as compassion is one of the greatest strengths humanity has.
Right.
Miracles happen when people move into a state of compassion and project that heart, that energy, that love, in a specific direction and intention. It's miraculous, and that's the heart space. That's the part that a lot of us have buried because of all of the pains, the attacks we go through living down here on the surface, and the spiritual attacks, the physical attacks, the chemical poisoning of our bodies. We're constantly being assaulted in one way or another, and that was all part of the plan, was to suppress the compassionate, the spiritual side of us, and allow the egos to take over, a fake persona to take over humanity, so we could be more easily manipulated. And, those that started this, you know, they knew what they were doing. They knew us because
Mhm.
they knew exactly what to do. It's just a tragedy. But, we have to get past that. No matter what, we have to get past that. So people are doing it. They're working, they're waking up, they're talking, they're, the media. No one trusts the media. So now, you have alternative media, you have podcasting, you have all this other information, which 25 years ago was called conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Now is the
Mhm.
mainstream, and it's remarkable to be alive and to see this happen. And it's all very, very positive and empowering, but it has a shock factor to it. You know, um, those who have bought the mainstream media and all the tall tales, hook, line, and sinker, they go through a process of like, wow, it's been a lie. You mean they've lied to us all this time? Um, yada yada yada, all these other things that go with it, and and we've talked about a lot of stuff. We haven't even touched on the COVID thing, which I don't necessarily want to go down that road today. But
Right.
wait till people find out
Mhm.
that this was all intentional,
Yeah.
and what they put
Mhm.
in their bodies. Oh my God, it's going to be a lot for people. It's going to be an awful lot, but it's a process. And fool me once, shame on
Yeah.
me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Or shame,
Yes.
shame on you, shame on me. Um, we're going to come out loving as doves, but wise as serpents at the end of this. On the other end of this, I don't think humanity will ever get fooled like this again
Mm-mm.
in any way, shape, or form. And if we do go out into the stars and we meet other evolving civilizations, we will have knowledge and wisdom to share based on our own experience that we've had here and our the process we went through in moving through the pain, moving through the truth, moving through the paradigm shifts and the rebuilding of humanity into a family unit. And that will be an extraordinary tool to help other evolving civilizations that we might meet out there, or colonizations of other planets that we do from Earth, to make sure that these stories, the stories, um, the tales of what we've been through, that they stay clean, that they don't get corrupted, and the stories at the end get altered or changed. That what's shared is the truth of the way it happened and what did happen. To so for everyone can have perspective. You
No, I
know,
really believe in the councils. I've felt that presence, and I believe universally. It doesn't matter the color you are in the universal way. As long as you're serving, this universe and doing the right thing, all of them can come together and work as one. And that's what I see on that other side is that process.
just this decision.
Yeah.
It's a decision to do it. Yeah,
Mhm. Right.
yeah.
It's
So but
amazing.
we won't have all the programming in between. You know,
Right.
all the divisional programming. We won't have any of that shit left.
And I think
So
on the other side, Alex, as you're talking about pushing the heart out, and I always talk about pushing the heart out in a collective, and that works all together as one and creates that energy. And I like, when people really start to understand that collective energy here as it works and how you feel it. And, when I do a meditation, I take people up. Thing is, this emotion that's different. It's not a motion of heartache, it's a motion of the heart that we're connected to. It's
Agreed.
Right.
on the other side. It's amazing. It's amazing. So
I can't wait to see who we become.
I know.
It's exciting, actually.
Superhero.
Like, all right, Galaxy, better take a step back because here we come.
Right.
Exactly. So I
think the Earthlings are here.
I know we are, right? I think it's been very humble having you on here. And
it's been a pleasure.
Yes, it has. It's been great.
And always at the end of our show, we do the bell to honor the kids.
Right.
And so just to
I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to do this for the first time tomorrow, but I want to see what you do because I don't know what to do. I bought a bell.
Awesome! So you're able to ring it. So what we do?
Old school bell. I got an old school.
Yes, it's awesome. But it's great because it brings in good frequency and it honors. And I'm still waiting for Trump to ring in the bell too. So we can start this. Ready?
If you got a bell, ring it.
That's great. So
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, Chief.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on, Alex.
Been
And
a long
those great Andromedas behind you. I should tell you guys a story on that. I honestly didn't know who Alex was, and I was on a show, and then I just saw these beings, and I had to ask Michael Jacob's wife, I go, who is that? And she's just like, what's Alex? And I'm like, oh, heck, I got to talk to him because they're chitting and chatting with me and just saying a bunch of stuff about him. And it was just really interesting. And I had to do a bunch of research on the Andromedas, and it was just an interesting situation. I just like it when Spirit brings it in like that. And like, go talk to him.
Yeah. When the waiter brings it right to you. It's nice and easy.
It is. It's great. Well, everybody have a blessed night. Take care. Stay in the light. It was an honor. You guys take care. See you later.
Privilege. Thank you, audience, for participating. Take care. Thanks,
Good night,
Jenny.
guys.
Take care. Good night.
Thanks, Alex.